Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prose Podcast. I'm your host, Tally Shamus, and today I'm joined by poet Nicole Dalcourt to talk about her craft and her new book, What Remains. Nicole Dalcourt is an award-winning Canadian writer and poet living on the outskirts of Toronto, Ontario. Her debut poetry collection, What Remains, uses a confessional voice to explore themes of grief, heartbreak, rebirth, and belonging. Dalcourt's work has appeared in Writerly Magazine, the King City Mosaic, and on Howl Radio and the Viewless Wings Podcast. When not writing, Nicole hosts and participates in open mics around the region and pursues her passion for teaching poetry skills through in-person and online workshops. So, Nicole, I am so excited to have you here today. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your writing journey and what brought you here?
I am super excited to be here too. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't know. I think I've been a lifelong writer as early as I can remember. I mean, in the 90s when you have a diary with the little lock and key, I've been writing since then. And then it kind of morphed into journaling and that kind of stuff. And then I went to college for journalism. And then I wrote a 90,000 word memoir. And then my kids left home and it was empty nest. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And so I started kind of digging up some old pieces that I had written in poetry. And I was like, I'm going to see what I can do with this.
That's fantastic. I just have so many questions about the difference between poetry and prose and how you refined your craft in terms of writing poems. So I guess why don't we start with how it feels for you to be writing poetry versus prose and what the differences are?
So I think the easiest way to explain the difference is prose is more of a narrative sort of conversation, almost the way you would speak plainly, right? And it's very storytelling. Poetry is storytelling too, but it's a little bit more lyrical. There's a lot more metaphor and that type of thing. So to me, that's the easiest way to explain the difference.
Hmm.
I try to do for poetry for me, I try to do a mix of both. So I try to have narrative and lyrical in all of my pieces because I think it just makes for a nicer reading experience.
So now maybe some of us, when we think about poetry, we think of rhyming verses or a story that rhymes. And I think that there's a lot more to poetry than that. So what would you say takes something from being a story, maybe even a story that rhymes, to being poetry, that specific art form?
Think it's probably your ability to have really crisp and fresh metaphors. I think taking something very ordinary and trying to explain it in a very different way and attaching meaning to it in a way that people hadn't thought of before is what makes poetry special.
Right, right. And how did you refine your craft? How did you take your poetry to a level where now you have this fantastic book? I do want to read an excerpt after, but why don't you touch on that at first, how you really refined your craft?
I think, it's like most things. You do what you can to learn, 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 learn. So I did a ton of courses. I did a ton of workshops. I've written in community. I've made writing part of my daily practice. I think the people that become really good at anything they do is because they put the time and work into it. I mean, obviously, some people are just naturally gifted and they come out of the gates just, whatever. But I think for most people, we have to practice and nurture our craft, whatever it is. It doesn't not just pertaining to writing, but if you're going to be a doctor, you're going to have to. Well, and you're a lawyer, right? So in a past life anyway, right? And so you can't just go to the bar, right? Like you have to work, you have to study, you have to understand what you're doing. And I think the same is for any of the arts as well.
And I've seen you, taking all sorts of opportunities. I know that you've done open mics where you've read your work. We met at a writers group where we shared
Mhm.
our work. So What would you say is the opportunity that helped you grow the most?
So I think that's twofold for me. So definitely, I have taken some absolutely amazing courses from just world-renowned poets that they're just so above my pay grade, and the fact that I got to learn from them was incredible. So that for sure, in terms of craft, helped me. But in terms of opportunity, I would actually say open mics have been the biggest opportunity that I have seen in my own, writing career. So I have had people hear me at open mics, hear me read my pieces, and I have been offered workshops and author talks and can I stock your book in my store? So, and I love it because I hate social media. So this is like the 90s again, where I can, social media wasn't around and you have to get out there and talk to people. And I'm just not good at social media. Not that I'm not good at it, it's just that I don't like it. And so being out and actually talking to people and reaching readers has been so impactful so far on this journey. So,
That's wonderful, and you've done so great. Like, your launch had over 100 people attend.
uh
You mentioned just recently on Instagram how you've had to order more stock of your book, so I really think that you've made very good use of that community that you've built.
Yeah, and it's all still because it's so early, it's still all a bit surreal. But yeah, I mean, I honestly thought, my first 200 books that I ordered, that it would take me like a year or 2 years to sell, or I'd be selling them 5 years down the road. And the fact that I had to put in another order is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's
Thank
truly a
you.
huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about What Remains. Oh my gosh, I love it. I wanna read, one poem that really stood out to me. I love this one so much. It's called Nothing Stays the Same. And so you wrote, "Everything is changing, people, flowers, families. I'm still here, and that is something I wasn't expecting. Look at me. Look what I had to do to survive. Look at what we've all had to do." So, can you tell me a little bit about what you were thinking, how you were feeling when you wrote this, and in general, what does What Remains mean to you?
So I think for any reader that's reading the book in its entirety, the book has three main parts that are very distinctive. And the first part is my childhood and some of the trauma that was involved in that. The second part was kind of going through divorce and starting to date and find love again. And then the third part is reclamation, rebirth, but also what remains after sort of going through all of these experiences. So that's where the title came from. But yeah, I think that piece in particular that you just read was just kind of being able to look back on life and being thinking everybody has made mistakes in their life. Everybody has done things that they've had to from their own place of survival. And this whole book for me was kind of writing through grief, writing through trauma and trying to get it out of my body, right? Like if you can get it out and just talk about it, and the more I've done that, I mean, the whole experience has been so healing. The connections I've made to people who are like, I can really relate to this piece, like you just did, and that's what you kind of want to do when you write. You want to touch people, right? You want to reach people.
Yeah, and your poetry definitely has. I mean, it's fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. Now, how has this experience with What Remains been different from the memoir that you mentioned that you wrote earlier?
I think that the memoir was a little bit too, this is what happened to me. This is what's going on. These are the people in it. And it was a little bit like too on the nose for what I was even comfortable sort of sharing in the world. Obviously, a memoir is so personal and much like a diary entry, right? I mean, there's different elements to it, obviously, but I think with poetry, you can write about the same experiences, but you can hide a little bit behind a metaphor, and you're not using people's names, right? And so I think there's a little bit of shelter when
Mm,
you write poetry versus pouring it all out in a memoir. And I think
Right.
different audiences too, and different places in my life, right? Like the
Mhm.
memoir was very difficult to write, and at the time when I wrote it, I didn't even have the mental or physical capacity to want to go out and push it out into the world. So I just feel like everything happens
Mhm.
for a reason, right? And I'm telling the same story, but I'm telling it in a way that actually may be able to reach more people.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
so I guess it's been easier to market What Remains than your memoir, and it's just come more naturally to you.
I think that's fair, yeah, and I think even, you know, if I were to shop it around to editors and agents and that kinda thing, memoirs are harder even to get out there, especially if you're not someone who's well known, which obviously I'm not, right? And so I think poetry is really having its moment right now. It's becoming, a really big, piece of art that especially from social media, I think social media has obviously really helped with that, but it's becoming very
Yeah.
common, and there's almost every city that you can think of has a specific poetry open mic, right? So it's really having its day, and I love that, so just kinda riding with it.
Have you entered any contests or anything like that with your work?
I have, only one contest actually, and I was lucky enough to win first prize, so that was amazing, and that
Oh,
was yeah, that
congratulations.
thank you. I was actually quite surprised, and it was funny how I found out because they had announced, or they were supposed to announce the winners, and you were supposed to get an email regardless, and I hadn't gotten an email, and I was like, "Well, I probably didn't get it, but I should call and follow up because I didn't get an email." And they had sent it to the wrong email, but they were like, "I'm so glad you called, you won first place." And I was like, "Are you" I was like, "Are you sure?" And they were like, "Yes." That was funny, but that was wonderful. But I mean, writing comes with a lot of rejection too, as
For
any
sure.
writer knows, right? Like I mean, I don't even know how many lit mags I've applied or, submitted to, and, you know, it's rejection, rejection, and then you get a yes, and then you get 10 rejections, and then you get another yes, and then you get 30 rejections, and then right? So it's just like it's just the way it is, right? Like you everybody has a place, poetry has its place anywhere, all writing does, but yeah, so I've had wins and losses and, you know, you just roll with them both.
And I know you're so on top of these things because I remember you sending me a contest. I think it was a short story contest and saying, "Oh,
Mhm.
you should enter this." And I said, "Well, I'm actually judging it."
Oh, I know, that was so funny. Yeah, every time I see something like that, if I think of one of my writer friends, like, I'll be like, "Oh, I think that would be a really good one for her or a really good one for him," or whatever. I love to send things out and just, like, everybody have a kick at the can, right? But that was funny. You were like, "No, I'm judging it." And I'm like,
Definitely.
"Well, you'd probably win then."
I don't know, the entries were really good. That was really fun,
That's
though. It was really
awesome.
fun being on the other side. Let's talk a little bit about being a self-published writer. You've had the experience now twice. Did you learn anything from your first go around that made this time smoother? Did you learn anything this time that you'd apply to the future? How has your experience been in general?
So my memoir I actually didn't publish. So I had shopped that one around for traditional publishing, and I had a couple of
Okay.
agents interested, but I really did panic. At that time, I was just not ready to put that much of myself out there. So that is actually in a drawer somewhere, and I don't feel like a pull to kind of bring it to the forefront. Maybe one day because it did take 4 years to write, so that'd be a waste of time, but, as of right now, I don't feel a great pull to, you know, go find it and dig that out. But, I think with, self-publishing, what I just wanted to make sure that I did was put my very best work out there. I wanted to make sure my cover design, my editing, all of that kinda stuff was just really, you know, top of the line. For me, spending money on that was worth it. And I had a couple of people, like professional editors, say to me, you know, you really should go the traditional route with this. It's good enough to do. You'll get it accepted and that kind of stuff. But that whole process takes time, as you know. And I didn't want to wait 2, 3 years to get it out. maybe my second book, which I'm already kind of fluttering around with that idea, that I would possibly do that the second time. But yeah, I really just wanted the creative control. I wanted to, if I'm going to have to market and do that kind of stuff myself, then I want to keep the income from it as well, right? And I just wanted to see if I could do it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So beautifully designed. It looks traditionally published.
And that's the thing too, right? I think there's obviously pros and cons to self-publishing because anyone can self-publish, and sometimes that doesn't always mean people are putting like their best work out there. They're just excited to have a book, and that's wonderful as well. I'm not knocking anyone. Sometimes it's accessibility of what they're able to afford to do but I think that sometimes there's a negative connotation to self-publishing, right? Like, oh, could you not have got it traditionally published? And I think that's a fair question for people to ask as well. So it really just comes down to comfort level, finances, that kind of stuff, and how long you want to wait, right? And I just didn't want to.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So you mentioned that, you're floating around ideas for a next book. What can we expect from you? Or do you want to write more poetry? Do you want to really dive into this? Would you ever try fiction writing?
I mean, I have talked about fiction writing in the past, but I think my true love is poetry. And even though it's such, kind of a small niche, I mean, it is definitely growing, but there's something about it that means so much to me. So I think I just really want to hone in on that and not have so many irons in the fire that I'm not really growing or excelling really well in one area because I'm all over the place. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to avoid that for myself because I know that that's what I would end up doing. And so, yeah, I think I'm probably just going to focus on poetry, at least for now, because it lights me up and I love it. And I have such a beautiful community, and open mics have become such a huge part of my life. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. But I'm also doing some stuff online where I'm opening it actually starts in November, a writing circle for poets. And
Fantastic.
yeah, so that'll be fun. And I'm trying to convince a girlfriend of mine that I actually met at an open mic for her and I to start a lit mag together. So I mean, there's still some stuff that's fun that's happening. And yeah, still in the realm of poetry for sure.
And these are connections, that you made once again by going to these events and putting yourself out there. So I think that's wonderful. So I mean, I know that some of the events that you do are local to us, but are there any opportunities that you would recommend that maybe our listeners could look into, like online opportunities or more general recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, wherever you live, you can look up an open mic, and I can almost guarantee you there's one close by for you for poetry, even for fiction. There's lots of open mics just for writing in general, where people will come and read a chapter of their fiction, nonfiction, whatever it is. So yeah, just keep looking. If you go on my website at NicoleDalcourt.com, it'll keep you up to date on more local things in our area for open mics. If anybody wants to look at that and where I'll be performing, but there's lots of things you can do. If you're a writer, reaching out to bookstores and seeing, if you can come in and do an author talk or reading and a signing. There's all kinds of things you can do. And one thing that I also try to do is I try to support anybody that comes to the area. I always, if there's something at the library, there's, poets coming in or writers coming in or anything like that, I try to support them and go. So I would just say, like, check out whatever's in your area, whatever's free, whatever's, I mean, especially anything at the library is always really accessible. But um, yeah, I think just making sure we're supporting the arts in general, I think is really important.
For sure. And you're not the first person to say that. I had another writer on, Kern Carter, who's fantastic, also local. And he mentioned that, one of the best things that he can do is support other writers by going to their events.
Mhm.
And then you build that community of people that likewise are going to support you. So I just checked out your website, though. It's gorgeous. I've never been on your website before, surprisingly. Did you design this yourself?
No, you have to know what your strengths are. So shout out to Sore Thumb. They're actually local as well, and they are wonderful. And, yeah, no, I had a great experience with them, so that's up that was actually just live maybe a few days ago. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so they've been working hard for me to get it up and going for the launch. So, yeah, I'm really happy with it. And anything that you want to find out about open mics, or if you're a poet listening, poetry or prose, there's a writing free writing and a subscription writing community there. Yeah, and I'm going to try to keep it up to date with all local happenings and my book tour and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's actually a really fascinating point. So I just looked up Sore Thumb also, and I see they're a
Yeah.
digital marketing agency. That's really neat. So what have you outsourced and what would you recommend? Like, you're a writer, you want to focus on writing and your craft. What parts of your profession or have you outsourced?
So I outsourced editing, only for just it was more of a global edit. So does this make sense? Because my book sort of follows a memoir timeline, right?
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that the pieces in there made sense to somebody who knew nothing about me. Because if I'm writing it, I know that if I'm talking about this, I know who I'm talking about. But would a reader understand what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
So outsourced that. I outsourced the cover in a way. So I actually designed the cover because I absolutely loved it. I found that image a long time ago, and the birds have significant meaning. When you read the book, you'll figure it out. But I designed the cover, but I didn't know how to do the specifications to fit the dimensions that were needed for what you need to do for KDP or for Ingram Spark. So which are the distributors of the book. So, I needed help with that. So they just took my vision and what I had built sort of on Canva and then replicated it and gave me all the proper dimensions.
Mhm.
And, I think that's it.
Yeah. And
Mm.
so in terms of Sore Thumb, so did they just design your website or have they been doing any sort of publicity or marketing for
Oh,
your
yeah, no, they just did the website for me in
Okay.
collaboration. So, like, obviously, we sat down and, did, like, what colors do you like? What's the vibe that you want and all that kinda stuff. Yeah, they've been great. And like I
Yeah.
said, a local company too, so I always like
Yeah.
to try to do that, yeah.
So then have you been doing all your own marketing? Like no publicist, no one, it's just you?
Just me, my friend, just
Wow.
me. Yeah, that's why I told you at the start of the podcast, I'm tired.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have gotten great results. So well
Yes.
worth the tiredness, but maybe you can take a nap.
Maybe, I'll try today. I slept in a little bit today. But
Nice.
yeah, no, it's good. Like, and you know what? It's just being willing. It's being proud of what you've done and being willing to talk about it, right? And just like, not being afraid to ask, friends for a review or if somebody's read your book. I mean, I've had people come up to me at open mic and say, "Hey, I read your book because I got it at the last open mic." And I say, "Oh, that's good." And they go, "I loved it." And I said, "Oh, that's, wonderful. I'd really, really, really appreciate it if you left a review because it really helps, right? It helps other readers find you, right? So little things like that go a long way too. So if you love the book, review it. If you don't love it, don't review it. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, so you had mentioned KDP and Ingram Spark. How did you choose, the outlets that you worked with, and what are the benefits that you went with? I know there are always pros and cons to every
Sure.
service.
So I did both. So KDP is obviously attached to Amazon, so that made the most sense. I mean, we can all have our thoughts about Amazon, but I mean, they really are a global leader of being able to get whatever it is that you want out into the world very quickly, right? So Ingram Spark is a little bit different. They're a worldwide distributor, and that's really the only place that, Barnes& and Noble Indigo chapters will buy from.
Hmm.
So it made sense to go on there so that I would be accessible to all of those places for people to buy my book. And I've had quite a few actually people say to me that they don't shop on Amazon for personal reasons, but they have all purchased on Barnes& and Noble. They were from the US or Indigo. So, I
Wonderful.
mean, I think it just makes sense to sort of have, if you want people to be able to read your stuff, you have to give them the opportunity to be able to do that, right? Like you can buy a signed copy of my book on my website, but I don't think that's going to be where people, yes, come buy it here. I'll sign it. It'll take 2 weeks to get to you. There's a mail strike there, right? Like right? So, or
Exactly.
you order it on Amazon and you get it tomorrow. So it's,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No,
yeah.
it's great to have that kind of availability so that people can
Yeah,
shop where they want. The most important thing is to get your book into readers' hands, right? As a
absolutely.
writer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I didn't warn
Yikes.
you, but are you willing to read your favorite poem from your book? I read mine, so I'd love to hear yours.
Yes, I actually have to grab it though, because I don't have it. I really didn't know we were going to do this. Okay. I think I will read a poem about do I want to read a poem about my divorce or about my new husband?
Well, I
Dealer's
always say
choice.
go with a new husband.
All right, let's do it. Okay, I'm going to read Reasons I Married My Second Husband. Because my name means nothing in the mouth of a stranger, but when he calls me, it sounds like silk and lightning, sometimes clover. Because when he touches me, it's like the lip of the morning pressing into the small of my back, his hand a cup of want. Because my sternum no longer aches, I can breathe so deep every bird in the yard stills to feel it. Because he bought me flowers every Friday the year my father died, just so I'd have something beautiful to be part of. Because he gave me a body to worship, held up to unflinching light until I could see all the ways I was already good. Because every time he holds my face in the soft muzzle of his hands, I become a miracle.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, shivers. That's amazing. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for sharing that.
absolutely. He's a gem. That's good.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think that's a much better note to leave off on than divorce,
You know
although I
what?
wanna
That's
know the
fair.
divorce one too now.
Next time. Next time.
Next time, we'll have to have you back on, but thank you, Nicole, so much. This was so wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for tuning into the Prose podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and remember to check back next Tuesday for a new episode.